My son dismissed me as irrelevant and told me not to bother showing up for Christmas dinner. Just a day later, he was practically begging for my presence. As I gathered at his table, feeling the festive spirit, my phone buzzed with urgency. "Mr. Henry? Officer Kate here. You need to hurry home. Someone's broken in." I had no inkling that the very son I trusted had orchestrated this chaos. If your family dinner turned into a nightmare, how would you handle it? Comment below and stay tuned for more. December 23rd. I'd spent the morning hanging Rose's favorite Christmas ornaments, each delicate glass angel whispering her memory into our quiet house. The turkey was thawing in the refrigerator, 22 pounds of hope for our first real family Christmas since her funeral 5 years ago. The phone rang at 7:15, cutting through the soft jazz Rose had loved. "Hello, son." "Dad." Mark's voice was cold, distant, wrong. "I was just thinking about tomorrow's dinner. Should I bring the cranberry sauce? You know how your mother always... We're not doing Christmas together this year." The words hit like ice water. I set down my coffee mug with trembling fingers. "What do you mean? We always spend Christmas together." "Your traditions are embarrassing, Dad. The way you go on about Mom telling the same stories. Lisa's parents think you're inappropriate, dwelling on the past like that." My reflection stared back from the dark kitchen window, a 68-year-old man suddenly looking every one of his years. "Son, I don't understand. Last week I was being polite. This year we want a peaceful holiday. Just Lisa's family. No drama about dead people." Dead people. He'd reduced Rose, his own mother, to dead people. "Mark, please. What did I do wrong?" "You didn't do anything wrong. You just don't fit anymore. Lisa's parents are educated people. They have standards." The grandfather clock chimed 8 times, each note echoing the finality in his voice. "What about Jake and Emma? They were excited about Grandpa's Christmas stories." "They'll be fine. Kids adapt." I pressed my palm against the cold window, feeling frostbite through my skin while my breath fogged the glass. "Can we at least talk about this? Maybe I could change." "The decision's made, Dad. I hope you understand." The dial tone buzzed like an angry wasp. I held the phone, staring at it as if it might explain how my son had become this stranger who could cut me from his life with surgical precision. The turkey in the refrigerator suddenly seemed like evidence of my own pathetic delusion. 22 pounds of hope, reduced to waste. I walked to the mantel where Rose's photograph smiled from its silver frame, wearing the red sweater I'd given her on our last Christmas together. "What did we do wrong, Rose?" I whispered to her frozen smile. "When did we lose him?" The silence felt heavier than the snow beginning to fall outside, covering our neighborhood in pristine white that would be gray slush by morning. The house felt different after Mark's call, as if the walls themselves had absorbed his cruel words. I stood before Rose's photograph, remembering when this room had been filled with laughter instead of silence. Christmas 1998. Rose was still healthy then, her auburn hair catching the tree lights as she helped 3-year-old Mark hang ornaments. He'd been so careful with each decoration, tiny fingers gripping them like treasures. "Higher, Daddy, higher," he'd squealed when I lifted him to place the star on top. Rose had laughed, that musical sound that made any room feel like home. "One day you'll be tall enough yourself, sweetheart," she'd promised. I touched her photograph, wondering when that eager little boy became the man who called his mother's memory inappropriate. The kitchen still smelled like cinnamon cookies I'd baked this morning, following Rose's recipe card. For Santa, she used to say, even after Mark stopped believing. "Traditions matter, Henry. They hold families together." But traditions, it seemed, could also drive them apart. I walked through our house, seeing it through Mark's eyes now. Furniture from the 70s, worn but comfortable. Rose's books still lining shelves. Her reading glasses on the side table where she'd left them 5 years ago. Maybe he was right. Maybe I was living too much in the past. In our bedroom, I sat on Rose's side of the bed, the space stretching vast and empty. Tonight it felt even more hollow, as if losing Mark had doubled the loneliness already living in these rooms. I pulled out the photo album from her nightstand, its leather cover cracked with age. The first page showed Mark's first Christmas, 6 months old, and drooling on a stuffed reindeer. Rose was holding him, glowing with new motherhood. Page after page told our family's story. Mark's first steps on Christmas morning, his gap-toothed grin opening presents, Rose teaching him to make stuffing, The three of us together, looking invincible. When had that wonder died? When did my boy become this cold stranger who could dismiss his mother's memory like yesterday's newspaper? I closed the album and placed Rose's photograph on my nightstand where I could see her smile first thing in the morning. The grandfather clock chimed 11:30 as I undressed for bed. Through the window, snow continued falling, blanketing our neighborhood in white. The Petersons' house across the street glowed with warm light, their Christmas tree visible through the front window. Normal families doing normal things. I pulled the covers up to my chin, Rose's side of the bed looking vast in the darkness. The photo album went back in the drawer, but not before I whispered one final question to the night. Where's that little boy who used to beg me to read him bedtime stories? The silence felt colder than the snow accumulating outside. Morning light filtered through curtains I hadn't opened properly, casting gray shadows across my breakfast table. The newspaper lay beside cold oatmeal while I read the obituaries, a habit that felt more relevant each year. Rose's photograph smiled from the nightstand, but even her encouragement couldn't lift the weight in my chest. The phone's ring made me jump, my spoon clattering against ceramic. After yesterday's conversation, any call felt like an ambush. I checked the caller ID with shaking fingers. Mark's name in blue letters. Hello? Dad. Warmth crept around that single word, so different from yesterday's ice. I want to apologize for last night. I was completely wrong. Relief flooded through me so quickly I gripped the table's edge. Son, I'm so glad you called back. You didn't do anything wrong. I was stressed about work, taking it out on you. His voice carried that familiar cadence from childhood apologies. Lisa reminded me how important our family traditions are. We want you to come for Christmas after all. Of course I'll come. The words tumbled out, joy bubbling like champagne. I'll bring the turkey and cranberry sauce. Perfect. Bring everything you usually make. He paused, and something in that silence made my coffee mug tremble. Lisa's really looking forward to it. The kids have been asking about Grandpa Henry's stories. But underneath his enthusiasm, something felt rushed, practiced, like reading from a script rather than speaking from his heart. Mark, what made you change your mind so suddenly? Yesterday you seemed certain. Just realized my mistake. His words came faster, overlapping my question. Listen, I need to run. Work calls. We'll see you Christmas Day around noon. Wait, son, can we talk? Love you, Dad. See you soon. The line went dead. I sat holding the phone, staring at it like it might provide answers. For a moment, pure joy had coursed through me. Christmas was saved. My family restored. But now doubt crept in like cold air through cracked windows. Something in Mark's voice hadn't sounded like my son. The words were right, the apology appropriate, but the delivery felt hollow, mechanical, like checking items off a list rather than mending a relationship. I paced to the kitchen window where yesterday's snow had transformed the yard into winter wonderland. The Peterson kids were building a snowman, their laughter carrying across still air. Normal families doing normal things. Why didn't this feel normal? Maybe I'm overthinking, I muttered to Rose's memory. He apologized. He wants me there. But as I moved through my morning routine dishes, newspaper, coffee mug, that nagging feeling grew stronger. Mark had deflected every attempt at deeper conversation, rushing off like he was afraid I might ask wrong questions. What questions would be wrong? I picked up the phone, dialing Mark's first 3 digits before stopping. What would I say? Your apology sounded fake? The question seemed paranoid. But something echoed in my memory. Lisa reminded me how important our family traditions are. Since when did Lisa need to remind Mark about anything? He'd grown up with these traditions, lived them every year until Rose died. I stared at my blank notepad, pen hovering over paper, while unease settled deeper in my bones. 3 days of purpose followed that confusing phone call. I woke December 24th with energy I hadn't felt since Rose's passing, humming old Christmas carols while brewing my morning coffee. The notepad beside my cereal bowl filled quickly with menu plans and shopping lists, each item checked and double-checked. Turkey, cranberry sauce, Rose's stuffing, I muttered, tapping my pen against the worn kitchen table. Everything had to be perfect. This was my chance to prove that family traditions still mattered, that some bonds couldn't be broken by grief or time. Henderson's butcher shop buzzed with holiday shoppers, but I waited patiently in line, determined to find the perfect bird. When my turn came, I leaned across the glass counter with the intensity of a man on a mission. I need your finest turkey, I told the round-faced butcher, his white apron splattered with evidence of his craft. "This is for a very special family reunion." His eyes brightened with understanding. "Bringing the family back together? I've got just the thing." The 22-pound turkey he presented looked like something from a magazine cover plump, unblemished, with skin that would crisp to golden perfection. I paid without haggling, already imagining the moment I'd carry it into Mark's kitchen. At Westfield Mall, holiday crowds moved like schools of fish between brightly lit stores. The toy store overwhelmed me with choices until I spotted the model airplane kit, a vintage Cessna, that reminded me of the wooden plane from Mark's childhood photos. For Emma, I selected an art set with colored pencils arranged like a rainbow in their wooden box. That evening I harvested herbs from my winter garden, their woody stems crackling between my fingers. Rose's marinade recipe, written in her careful script, lay propped against the sugar bowl while I minced garlic and stripped rosemary leaves. "Rose, I hope I remember this correctly," I whispered to her photo on the windowsill. "This has to be perfect." The marinade came together like fragrant green paste garlic, rosemary, thyme, olive oil, and Rose's secret ingredient, a splash of white wine. I massaged it under the turkey skin with careful fingers, feeling like I was performing some ancient ritual of reconciliation. Christmas Eve morning arrived gray and cold, but my spirits remained high. I wrapped gifts with military precision, folding corners sharp as knife blades, tying ribbons with careful bows. My best Christmas shirt hung pressed and ready, cologne dabbed behind my ears like armor for battle. Yet as evening approached, unease crept in like fog through cracks. Mark hadn't called to confirm details. What time should I arrive? Should I bring wine? Did the children have food allergies I'd forgotten? My phone remained stubbornly silent despite frequent glances. Tom Wilson appeared at my kitchen window while I cleaned up marinade bowls, his weathered face creased with curiosity. "Big plans tomorrow, Henry?" he called through the glass. "Christmas dinner with Mark and his family," I replied, perhaps too quickly. "We're going to be a real family again." Something flickered across Tom's expression, but he only nodded. "That's wonderful. You deserve happiness." After he left, I couldn't shake the feeling that his question had carried weight beyond casual neighborly interest. But I pushed the thought away, focusing instead on the golden turkey resting in my refrigerator and the carefully wrapped gifts waiting by the door. By bedtime Christmas Eve, everything was ready. Everything except my racing heart, which seemed determined to find problems where none existed. Why hadn't Mark called? Why did Tom look concerned? Why did this reunion feel more like a performance than a homecoming? I stared at the ceiling until dawn, telling myself that anticipation always brought anxiety. Tomorrow would be perfect. It had to be. Christmas morning dawned crisp and bright, snow sparkling like diamonds across the neighborhood. I dressed carefully, straightening my tie in the hallway mirror. The turkey carrier felt heavier than expected as I loaded it into my car alongside gift bags. Mark's driveway crunched under my tires, ice crystals glittering in the afternoon sun. Christmas lights outlined every window, creating a postcard-perfect scene. Before I could knock, the door swung open to reveal Lisa's warm smile, flour dusting her red sweater. My daughter-in-law had always been the heart of this family, kind, genuine, and devoted to making everyone feel welcome. "Henry, we're so glad you're here. Come in before you freeze." The house smelled like cinnamon and pine, holiday music drifting from speakers while Christmas lights cast rainbow shadows across polished floors. Jake appeared at my elbow, bouncing with excitement. My 8-year-old grandson had Mark's dark hair but Lisa's gentle eyes, an energy that could power the entire neighborhood. "Grandpa Henry, did you bring presents? Can we open them now?" "Let your grandfather get settled first," Lisa laughed, taking the heavy turkey carrier. "This weighs a ton. What did you do to it?" "Rose's secret marinade," I said, unwinding my scarf while Emma peeked shyly around the corner. My 6-year-old granddaughter was quieter than her brother, with Lisa's blonde curls and an artist's soul that reminded me of Rose. 24 hours of garlic, rosemary, and patience. Carol emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a reindeer dish towel. Lisa's mother was a sturdy woman in her 60s with silver hair and the same warm smile as her daughter. "This turkey is magnificent. You must share Rose's secret. I've been making the same boring bird for 30 years. The secret is time," I told her, accepting a firm handshake from James, Lisa's father. A retired mechanic with calloused hands and kind eyes, He'd always treated me with respect, despite Mark's occasional complaints about my old-fashioned ways. Mark appeared last, straightening his tie with movements that seemed too precise. My 35-year-old son looked successful in his pressed shirt and slacks, but his smile reached his mouth and stopped short of his eyes. "Thanks for coming, Dad. This means everything to us." Something in his tone made me study his face, but Jake grabbed my hand and dragged me toward the dining room. The table gleamed under candlelight, set with Lisa's good china and cloth napkins folded into triangles. My turkey would take center stage once carved. "The dining room looks beautiful, Lisa." "Carol helped with decorations," Lisa replied, cheeks flushed with pride. "We wanted everything special for you." Emma tugged my jacket sleeve. "Grandpa Henry, will you tell us stories about Grandma Rose during dinner?" My throat tightened. "Of course, sweetheart. She would have loved being here with all of you." "She is here," Jake announced with 8-year-old certainty. "Mom says people we love are always with us at Christmas." Lisa's eyes glistened as she smoothed Jake's cowlick. "That's right, honey." Mark cleared his throat. "Should we get the turkey in the oven?" "We don't want to keep everyone waiting." I followed him into the kitchen, noting how he avoided eye contact, how his hands trembled adjusting the oven temperature. The enthusiasm from his phone call seemed forced now, like playing a rehearsed role. "Mark, is everything all right? You seem—" "Everything's fine, Dad. Just want today to be perfect." He finally met my eyes, and for a moment I saw something that looked like guilt. "You know how it is." But I didn't know how it was. Something felt off, like a song played in the wrong key. The turkey emerged from the oven golden and perfect, Rose's marinade having worked its magic to create a crispy, herb-crusted skin that drew appreciative murmurs from around the kitchen. "Would you carve, Henry?" Lisa asked, offering me the electric knife. "You're the artist here." I carved with steady hands, each slice revealing meat so tender it practically fell from the bone. The marinade had penetrated deep, creating layers of flavor that made even James nod with approval. "Now that's how you cook a bird," he said, helping carry platters to the dining room. We took our seats around the candlelit table, the children flanking me like bookends while the adults settled into comfortable conversation. Lisa had outdone herself. The table groaned under the weight of traditional dishes, each one prepared with obvious care. "Henry, would you say grace?" Carol asked, her voice gentle with respect. I bowed my head, feeling Rose's presence like a warm hand on my shoulder. "Dear Lord, thank you for bringing our family together on this blessed day. Help us remember those we've lost and cherish those we still have. Amen." "Amen," the table echoed, and for a moment, everything felt exactly as it should. Conversation flowed like wine during dinner. James asked about my retirement projects while Carol praised every dish I'd contributed. The children chattered about school and friends, their voices bright with holiday excitement. "Grandpa Henry," Emma said, carefully cutting her turkey, "tell us about Grandma Rose's Christmas cookies." "She made stars and angels," I began, watching their faces light up. But the secret was in the icing. She'd let me help, but I always made a mess. "Did she get mad?" Jake asked, eyes wide. "Never. She'd just laugh and say, 'Henry, you're better at eating them than decorating them.'" Lisa smiled warmly. "She sounds wonderful. I wish I could have known her better." "She would have loved you," I said, meaning every word. Rose always said the best families are the ones we choose to love. Even Mark seemed to relax during these stories, sharing a few memories of his own. But I noticed things the way he checked his watch when he thought no one was looking, how he startled slightly when someone's phone buzzed with notifications. His laughter carried the right notes, but something underneath felt hollow, like an echo in an empty room. "More wine, anyone?" Mark asked, standing abruptly to refill glasses that were barely half empty. "Sit down, son," James said with good-natured authority. "Enjoy your dinner. The wine can wait." Mark sat back down, but his leg bounced under the table with nervous energy. Lisa placed a calming hand on his knee, shooting him a concerned look. "Everything all right, honey?" "Fine. Just excited about presents," Mark replied, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. As we finished the main course, Carol began clearing plates with Lisa's help. "Should we move to the living room for dessert and gifts?" "That sounds perfect," I said, standing to help. The children were already bouncing with anticipation. "Presents! Presents!" Jake chanted while Emma clapped her hands with quiet excitement. Mark stood too quickly, his chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "I'll just check on something in the kitchen first." He disappeared before anyone could respond. leaving the rest of us to migrate toward the living room where the Christmas tree stood in glorious splendor, surrounded by carefully wrapped packages. But as I settled into the comfortable armchair Lisa had designated as mine, I couldn't shake the feeling that Mark's nervous energy had less to do with Christmas excitement and more to do with something he was desperately trying to hide. The grandfather clock in the hallway chimed 8 o'clock, and I noticed Mark glance toward it with what looked almost like relief. What was he waiting for? The living room transformed into a wonderland of torn wrapping paper and delighted squeals. Jake attacked his presents with the enthusiasm of a hurricane, while Emma opened hers with careful precision, savoring each reveal. "A Cessna model," Jake shouted, holding up the airplane kit like a trophy. "Grandpa Henry, this is just like the ones at the air show. Can we build it together?" "Of course," I promised, warmth spreading through my chest. "That's what grandfathers are for." Emma hugged her art set close, already planning masterpieces with colored pencils that gleamed like jewels in their wooden case. "I'm going to draw our whole family," she announced solemnly. "Even Great-Grandma Rose, so she can be with us too." The room fell quiet for a moment, Rose's absence suddenly present among us like an extra guest. But it wasn't the sharp grief I'd carried for 5 years. This felt gentler, like she was smiling down at us from wherever such smiles come from. "She would have loved that," I said, my voice rougher than intended. Lisa wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "Emma, that's the most beautiful idea." "I want to help," Jake declared, abandoning his airplane box to peer at Emma's art supplies. "Can I draw Grandpa Henry's turkey?" The children's laughter filled the room like music, and for the first time since Rose's death, I felt complete. This was what Christmas should be: family together, traditions honored, love shared across generations. Carol and James exchanged knowing looks, the kind that came from 40 years of marriage and understanding each other without words. Lisa curled up on the couch, watching her children with the contentment of a mother seeing her family whole. Even Mark seemed to relax slightly, though I caught him checking his phone when he thought no one was looking. "Thank you, Grandpa Henry," Emma said, climbing onto my lap with her art set. "This is the best Christmas ever." Jake joined us, carefully placing his airplane kit on the coffee table. "Will you really help me build it? Dad's always too busy." I glanced at Mark, who had the grace to look embarrassed. "I'll make time," he said quietly. "We'll all help," Lisa added, smoothing Jake's hair. "It'll be a family project." I loosened my tie and leaned back in the armchair Lisa had designated as mine, feeling more content than I had in months. The children played at my feet with their new treasures, their giggles providing a cheerful soundtrack to adult conversation. This was what I'd dreamed of during those lonely nights: my grandchildren's laughter, Lisa's warm smile, even Mark's presence, however strained it might be. The grandfather clock chimed 8:30, and I noticed Mark's shoulders tense slightly. But I pushed the observation aside, not wanting to let suspicion poison this perfect moment. My phone buzzed against my chest, a gentle vibration through my jacket pocket. I ignored it, not wanting to break the spell of this beautiful evening. It buzzed again, more insistent. "Excuse me for just a moment," I said to the room, stepping toward the hallway for privacy. The warmth of the family scene followed me, but as I pulled out my phone, something cold settled in my stomach. Unknown number. I slipped into the narrow powder room off the main hallway, closing the door to muffle the warm sounds of family conversation. The unknown number glowed on my phone's display, and I almost declined it. Who calls on Christmas night except telemarketers? But when it stopped ringing and immediately started again, urgency overrode caution. "Hello, Mr. Henry?" The voice was female, young, professional. "This is Officer Kate Mitchell with Oakwood Police Department. You need to get home immediately." My reflection stared back from the bathroom mirror, watching confusion replace the contentment I had felt moments before. "Officer, what's wrong? What's happening?" "Someone's breaking into your house right now. I've been monitoring suspicious activity in your neighborhood for the past few days, and tonight they made their move." The words hit like ice water. Behind the bathroom door, I could hear Jake explaining airplane parts to his grandmother, normal Christmas evening sounds that suddenly felt very far away. "Breaking in? Are you sure? Maybe it's just—" "Sir, I can see them moving through your house with a flashlight. You need to get home now while we coordinate response." My grip tightened on the phone. "How do you know it's my house? How did you get my number?" "I've been watching your property since I noticed someone casing it earlier this week. I got your contact information from neighborhood records. Mr. Henry, This is not a drill. Through the bathroom door, I heard Lisa laugh at something Carol said. The sound that had warmed my heart minutes ago now felt like it belonged to another world. What should I do? Come home, but don't approach the house directly. I'm calling for backup now. How quickly can you get here? 15 minutes, maybe 20 in this snow. Good. Be careful, and don't try to be a hero. We'll handle this. The line went dead, leaving me staring at my reflection in the mirror. The grandfather clock in the hallway chimed 9 times, each note echoing the urgency in Officer Kate's voice. I opened the bathroom door to find Mark standing in the hallway, his face a mask of concern that didn't quite reach his eyes. Everything okay, Dad? You were in there a while. There's an emergency at home. I grabbed my coat from the closet, movements jerky with adrenaline. Someone's breaking into my house. The room fell quiet except for the children's continued play. Lisa appeared at my elbow, dish towel still in her hands. Breaking in? But who would on Christmas night? I don't know. I fumbled with coat buttons, muscle memory failing under stress. The police called. I have to go. Mark stepped forward, his expression the picture of concerned confusion. Who called? How did they know to reach you here? For a split second, I studied my son's face, searching for something I couldn't name. His worry looked genuine, but there was something underneath the tension that felt too sharp, too focused. Officer Kate Mitchell. She said she's been watching suspicious activity in the neighborhood. Something flickered across Mark's features, so quickly I might have imagined it. Dad, maybe you should wait for the police to handle it. Don't put yourself in danger. It's my house, Mark. My belongings. I bent to kiss the children goodbye, their small faces looking up at me with innocent bewilderment. I'm sorry to leave like this. Lisa hugged me tightly. Be careful, Henry. Call us when you know everything's okay. The cold December air hit my face like a slap as I hurried to my car. In the rearview mirror, I saw them clustered in the doorway. Lisa hugging herself against the cold, Carol and James shaking their heads, the children pressing their faces to the window. Mark stood slightly apart from the group, his silhouette dark against the warm light spilling from inside. As I backed out of the driveway, I caught a glimpse of his face in the porch light. He looked relieved. The suburban street stretched empty before me, Christmas lights twinkling from house after house. My hands gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles went white, Officer Kate's urgent voice replaying in my memory. The speedometer crept past the limit as I ran yellow lights, driven by instinct that screamed danger. Had I left something running? But I'd been so careful before leaving the house had been pristine, secure, unless someone else had entered it. My mind circled back to Mark's behavior during dinner, checking his watch. Forced laughter, the relief when I announced my departure. Was I imagining connections, or had my son seemed eager for me to leave? I turned into my neighborhood, noting how few houses showed signs of life. Christmas night meant families inside, curtains drawn perfect conditions for crime. My house sat dark at the end of Maple Street, exactly as I'd left it, but something felt wrong before I could identify what had changed. I parked behind Tom Wilson's oak tree, instinct demanding stealth. Cold air bit my face as I stepped out, every sense hyper-aware. The familiar street looked different through the lens of danger shadows deeper, ordinary objects transformed into threats. My house crouched dark against the stars, but something was wrong with its silhouette. A basement window that should have reflected streetlight showed only black emptiness. I crept closer, breath forming white puffs. Broken glass glittered on the snow like scattered diamonds, and my heart hammered against my ribs. Someone was inside right now. A flashlight beam swept across my upstairs bedroom window, methodical, deliberate. Whoever was in there wasn't panicking or grabbing randomly. They were searching for something specific. I fumbled for my phone, but headlights swept across the street. A police cruiser pulled up silently, no sirens or flashing lights. A young woman in uniform stepped out, moving with quiet confidence toward my position. Mr. Henry? I'm Officer Kate Mitchell. Are you hurt? No, but someone's definitely inside. I can see their flashlight upstairs. I've got backup coming. My partner spotted the break-in and called it in. She studied the broken window with professional assessment. Looks like they came prepared. This wasn't random. The flashlight beam disappeared from my bedroom, then reappeared in the kitchen, moving systematically through my house, violating 40 years of memories with Rose. What are they looking for? Money, valuables, documents, maybe? We've had reports of someone watching your house for days. Watching my house? Why? Someone who knew your routine knew you'd be away tonight. Officer Kate's radio crackled softly. Backup's 2 minutes out. Don't approach the house until we secure it. The flashlight moved to the basement now, where I kept my small safe with important papers and the modest savings I'd accumulated over the years. Nothing spectacular, maybe $50,000 in cash and bonds, but enough to pay off debts if someone was desperate. They're in my basement now. That's where I keep my safe. Officer Kate's expression hardened. Someone knew exactly where to look. Officer Kate's radio crackled with backup coordinates as we crouched behind Tom's fence, watching the flashlight beam move through my basement. The intruder had been down there for several minutes now, long enough to locate and work on my safe. Movement at the basement window, Kate whispered into her radio. Suspect preparing to exit. My chest tightened with a mixture of fear and rage. 40 years of memories, Rose's jewelry, our important documents, my modest savings all being violated by some stranger who thought Christmas night was the perfect time to destroy an old man's life. The flashlight beam disappeared, and we heard the scrape of someone climbing through the broken window. Kate tensioned, her hand moving to her weapon as she signaled for me to stay back. A dark canvas bag appeared first, stuffed with what looked like cash and papers, then a leg, carefully testing the window frame for sharp glass before committing to the exit. "Police! Don't move!" Kate's voice cut through the winter silence like a blade. The figure froze halfway through the window, then tumbled forward into the snow with a startled curse. The bag split open, scattering cash and documents across the white ground like confetti. I stepped from behind the fence, and my blood turned to ice water. David Clark. The 30-something man scrambled to his knees, nearly losing his balance on the snow-slick ground. His face went ghost pale in the dim light from neighboring houses, recognition and terror warring in his eyes. I knew David from the neighborhood, a quiet man who lived 3 streets over, someone I'd exchanged pleasantries with at the grocery store. He'd always seemed decent, polite, the kind of person who helped elderly neighbors with their groceries. What desperation had driven him to this? "Mr. Henry," David's voice cracked with panic and shame. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never wanted to do this." Cash lay scattered around his feet in the snow, my emergency savings, maybe $60,000 I'd kept in the safe for security. Bills that Rose and I had saved over decades, reduced to evidence in a crime scene. "Then why did you?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. The violation hurt more than I'd expected. This wasn't just theft, it was the destruction of trust, the shattering of my belief that some things were still sacred. "I needed the money," David whispered, his breath forming white puffs in the frigid air. I thought you wouldn't miss it. I thought it was just emergency cash you'd forgotten about." Officer Kate kept her weapon trained on him while backup sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. "How did you know about the safe? How did you know where to look?" David's eyes darted between us, panic making him shake despite the cold. He opened his mouth to speak, then closed it again, as if wrestling with whether to reveal something that would make everything worse. "David," I said quietly, "how did you know I kept money in that safe?" The question hung in the winter air like a challenge. Behind us, police cars were turning into my street, their lights painting the snow in alternating red and blue. But in this moment, everything hinged on David's answer. His face crumpled with guilt and fear, and I saw him make the decision to tell the truth. "Someone told me," he whispered. Police sirens grew closer, but I barely heard them. Everything had narrowed to David's terrified face, and the words hanging between us. "Someone told you," I repeated. "Who?" David's shoulders sagged as if his secret had become too heavy to bear. He looked at the scattered cash, then back at me with shame-filled eyes. "Mark," he whispered. "Your son Mark told me." The name hit like a physical blow. I staggered backward, Officer Kate steadying me. The Christmas lights on my house blurred through sudden tears. "Mark sent you to rob me?" "He's in trouble, Mr. Henry. Bad trouble." David's confession tumbled out desperately. He owes money to dangerous people. Almost $200,000. 200,000. The number echoed in my skull. "Gambling debts," David continued, breath coming in panic puffs. "Bad investments, poker games, online betting. It started small but grew fast. The people he owes aren't forgiving." I thought of Mark's nervous energy during dinner, checking his watch, startling at phone notifications. Not Christmas excitement, fear about deadlines. He said you kept emergency cash in the basement safe. Maybe 50 or 60,000. Said you'd never miss it. Probably had insurance anyway. So he sent you to steal from his father on Christmas night? Officer Kate's voice carried disgust. He was desperate. These people don't just break legs anymore. They destroy families. Mark said if he didn't pay by New Year's. David's voice trailed off ominously. I stared at the money in the snow bills Rose and I had saved for security. Mark had reduced our life's work to a theft target, our family bonds to convenient alibis. The Christmas dinner was all fake, I said, understanding flooding through me. David nodded miserably. He needed you away for 3 hours. Long enough to get in, find the safe, get out. The family dinner was perfect cover. The betrayal cut deeper than any wound. Mark had looked me in the eye across that table, accepted my gifts, let his children call me Grandpa while his friend ransacked my home. He used his own children as part of the plan. Mr. Henry, I'm sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. I needed money too, and Mark said it would be easy, that you'd never know it was us. Police cars rounded the corner, headlights sweeping across us. Officers emerged with practiced efficiency. My son, the boy who'd begged for bedtime stories, helped Rose bake cookies, cried in my arms when she died, had orchestrated my robbery while serving me dinner. Where is Mark now? Officer Kate asked. Still at home, David said quietly, waiting to hear if it worked, probably checking his phone for my all-clear text. I closed my eyes, seeing Mark's relief when I'd announced my departure, not concerned satisfaction that his plan was proceeding. He doesn't know I got caught, David added. He thinks I'm bringing him your money. The little boy who'd once trusted me with his secrets had become a stranger who'd stolen mine. The police cars pulled up with flashing lights, but no sirens. Their red and blue strobes painting the snow-covered street like some twisted Christmas display. 2 officers emerged with practiced efficiency, hands resting on their equipment belts as they assessed the scene. Officer Kate Mitchell, Oakwood PD, Kate announced to her colleagues. Suspect is secured, homeowner is safe. We caught him red-handed with stolen cash. The lead officer approached David, who remained kneeling in the snow beside my scattered savings. David Clark, you're under arrest for breaking and entering and theft. As they began the familiar ritual of rights and handcuffs, Tom Wilson appeared from his house, bathrobe belted over pajamas, slippers crunching through the snow. His weathered face showed a mixture of relief and concern. Henry, thank God you're safe, he said, clasping my shoulder. I've been watching your place since I got suspicious about that car driving by repeatedly this week. Tom, you called Officer Kate? Retired police myself, 28 years on the force, he explained, nodding toward Kate. When I saw someone with a flashlight in your basement tonight, I knew it wasn't you. Called it in immediately, and tracked down your phone number from the neighborhood directory. So that was how Officer Kate had reached me. Not some mysterious surveillance, but a concerned neighbor who'd recognized criminal behavior when he saw it. You saved more than just my money tonight, Tom. The lead officer finished cuffing David and helped him to his feet. Mr. Hayes, we'll need you to come to the station tomorrow to file a complete report and inventory what was taken. Most of it's right here in the snow, I said, looking at the scattered bills. About 60,000 in cash from my safe. Kate knelt to collect the money, placing each bill carefully into evidence bags. We'll need to process this, but you'll get it back once the case is resolved. David looked at me one final time before they loaded him into the patrol car, his face a mask of shame and regret. Mr. Henry, I hope someday you can forgive me, and I hope you can forgive Mark too. He's not a bad person, just a desperate one. The car door slammed shut, cutting off any response I might have made. As the patrol cars drove away with David, Tom and Officer Kate helped me collect the remaining papers scattered in the snow. Most were just bank statements and insurance policies, nothing that couldn't be replaced. What will you do about Mark? Kate asked quietly. I looked toward the direction of my son's house, where he was probably still playing the perfect family man while waiting for news of his successful robbery. I'm going back there, I said, surprising myself with the steadiness of my voice. He needs to know his plan failed. Henry, Tom warned, maybe you should wait until morning. Let this settle. No, I said, walking toward my car. Some conversations can't wait. Some truths need to be told while they're fresh. The broken basement window gaped like a wound in my house's foundation, but the real damage had been done to something far more precious than property. My family was about to learn what betrayal really cost. My hands trembled as I drove back through the empty Christmas streets, The evidence bags Officer Kate had given me sitting on the passenger seat like accusations I wished I never had to make. Photos of my broken basement window, David's written confession proof of betrayal that would shatter what remained of my family. Mark's house still glowed with warm light when I pulled into the driveway, Christmas decorations twinkling as if nothing had changed. Through the front window, I could see him pacing near the Christmas tree, phone in his hand, checking it obsessively. I didn't knock this time. The front door opened onto a scene that looked peaceful on the surface, but felt poisoned by what I now knew. Lisa was folding the children's new Christmas clothes while Carol and James helped Jake with his airplane model. Emma sat quietly at the coffee table, carefully drawing with her new art supplies. Mark stood by the fireplace, his phone clutched in his hand like a lifeline. Everyone looked up as I entered, and I watched Mark's face transform from relief to confusion to growing alarm as he noticed my grim expression and the evidence bags in my hands. "Henry, thank goodness you're back," Lisa said, hurrying toward me with genuine concern creasing her features. "What happened at the house? Was anything stolen? You look terrible." "Ask your husband what was stolen," I said quietly, placing the evidence bags on the coffee table with deliberate ceremony, right next to Emma's innocent drawings. The room fell silent except for Jake's soft airplane sounds as he moved his model through the air. Emma looked up from her art, sensing adult tension she couldn't understand. Mark stared at the evidence bags like they contained his own death warrant. His face went pale as he recognized what appeared to be official police documents through the clear plastic. "Dad, I don't know what you're talking about," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "David Clark is in police custody," I announced, my voice steady despite the rage building in my chest. "He's been arrested for breaking and entering, and theft. He told the police everything, Mark. Everything about your plan." The words hung in the air like an explosion waiting to detonate. Carol's hand flew to her mouth while James set down his puzzle piece with a sharp click. "David Clark?" Lisa's face crumpled with confusion. "The man from Pine Street? What does he have to do with anything?" "Mark, what is your father talking about?" "He broke into my house tonight while we were having dinner here," I explained, never taking my eyes off Mark. "He stole $60,000 from my basement safe. Money that your husband told him would be there." Mark's carefully constructed facade began to crack. "Dad, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly," I cut him off. "David confessed that you planned the whole thing. You used our family Christmas dinner as the perfect alibi while your friend robbed your own father." Lisa looked back and forth between us, her face a mask of growing horror. "That's impossible. Mark was here all evening. He couldn't have planned any robbery." "He didn't need to be there," I said. "He just needed me to be here, away from my house for hours, while David did the actual breaking and entering." James stood up slowly, his weathered face showing the first signs of understanding and disgust. "You're saying Mark orchestrated this? His own father's robbery?" $200,000, I said, watching Mark flinch at the number. "That's how much he owes in gambling debts. Debts he's been hiding from all of you." The room seemed to freeze. Lisa's face went white as the implications sank in. Carol gripped her husband's arm for support. Mark opened his mouth to speak, then closed it again, realizing that every word would only dig his grave deeper. His phone buzzed in his hand, probably another message from whoever he owed money to, and he stared at it like it was a snake. "Is this true, Mark?" Lisa's voice was barely a whisper. "Did you really plan to rob your own father?" Before Mark could answer, his phone buzzed again. This time, instead of checking it discreetly, he looked at the screen and his face went completely white. "They want their money by midnight," he whispered, more to himself than to us. The silence that followed Mark's whispered confession stretched like a chasm across the room. Lisa stared at her husband as if seeing a stranger wearing his face, while Carol and James exchanged looks of horror and disbelief. "Gambling debts?" Lisa's voice cracked on the words. "Mark, you promised me after Atlantic City. You swore on our children's lives that you'd stopped." Mark's phone buzzed again in his trembling hand. This time he didn't even look at it, just let it fall to the carpet beside Emma's scattered colored pencils. "I tried to stop," he said, his voice breaking, "but it got out of control so fast. Online poker, sports betting, the casino trips when I said I was working late. It started as just a way to make extra money, but then I was losing and trying to win it back, and it just kept getting worse." $200,000, James said, his voice heavy with disgust. "How do you even lose that much money without your wife knowing?" "Credit cards, loans, borrowed against my 401 Kelvin," Mark confessed. slumping into the armchair like a deflated balloon. I kept thinking I could win it back. That one big score would fix everything. Lisa's face cycled through emotions: shock, betrayal, rage, and finally something that looked like grief for the man she thought she'd married. "So you decided to steal from your father?" Her voice was deadly quiet now. "You used our children, used me, used Christmas dinner as cover to rob the man who raised you?" "These people don't just break legs anymore, Lisa," Mark pleaded desperately. "They find out where you work, where your kids go to school. They destroy everything you love piece by piece until you pay up." "So you destroyed it yourself first," Carol said, her voice shaking with moral outrage. "You turned your own father into a victim while your children played at his feet." Jake looked up from his airplane, finally sensing that something terrible was happening. "Mommy, why are you crying? Why is everyone so mad?" Lisa knelt beside her son, trying to compose herself. "Sometimes grown-ups make very bad choices, sweetheart. Choices that hurt the people they're supposed to love." "Did Daddy make a bad choice?" Emma asked innocently, looking up from her drawing of what appeared to be our whole family around the Christmas tree. The question hung in the air like an indictment. Mark couldn't even look at his daughter. "Yes," Lisa said simply. "Daddy made a very bad choice." "The worst part," I said quietly, "is that if you had just asked me for help, I would have given it to you. You're my son, Mark. I would have helped you find a way out of this mess." Mark's face crumpled. I was too ashamed. I couldn't admit what I'd become. "So instead you became something worse," James said. "A thief who preys on his own family." Lisa stood up abruptly, her decision crystallizing in real time. "I want a divorce." The words fell like a guillotine blade. "Lisa, please," Mark begged, reaching for her. "I can get help. Gamblers, Anonymous, therapy, whatever it takes. I can change." She stepped away from his outstretched hand as if it carried disease. "You planned to rob your father while your children hugged him goodnight. You used their love for their grandfather as part of your criminal scheme. There's no coming back from that. But the kids? The kids deserve better than a father who's a criminal," Carol said firmly. "Lisa, you and the children can stay with us as long as you need." "What about the people Mark owes money to?" James asked practically. "If they're as dangerous as he says?" "That's his problem to solve," Lisa said with finality. "I won't let him drag us down with him." Mark's phone buzzed again on the floor. This time he picked it up and read the message, his face going even paler. "They know where I live," he whispered. "They're coming here if I don't pay by midnight." Lisa scooped up Emma while James gathered Jake's toys. "Then we're leaving." "Now. Where will you go?" I asked. "My parents' house for tonight," Lisa said, already moving toward the stairs to pack. "Tomorrow I'm calling a lawyer." As the family rushed to gather essentials, Mark sat alone in his chair, staring at his phone like it held his death sentence. The Christmas tree lights twinkled mockingly behind him, illuminating the wreckage of what had once been a family. "Dad," he said as I prepared to leave, "I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I'm sorry." I looked at my son, the little boy who used to build snowmen in our backyard, who'd cried when his goldfish died, who'd once been the center of my world. "So am I, Mark," I said. "So am I." I drove home through empty streets for the second time that night, but this journey felt different. The weight of betrayal had lifted, replaced by something cleaner: sadness, yes, but also a strange sense of clarity. My house sat dark and wounded, the broken basement window like a gash in its foundation. But it was still my house, still the home Rose and I had built together. The violation could be repaired. Trust was far more fragile. Inside, I walked through rooms that felt different now. Not lonely, but peaceful in a way they hadn't been since Rose's death. The desperate need to reconnect with Mark had been consuming me for years, driving me to overlook warning signs I should have heeded. I sat in my kitchen, looking at Rose's photograph on the windowsill. Her smile seemed knowing, as if she'd been waiting for me to understand what she'd always tried to teach me. "You were right, weren't you?" I said to her image. "Family isn't just blood. It's the people who choose to love you." The house creaked around me, settling into winter silence. Outside, snow continued falling, covering the broken glass in my yard with pristine white. By morning, even tonight's violation would be hidden under nature's clean slate. My phone buzzed with a text message. For a moment my heart clenched, thinking it might be Mark with more apologies. But the name on the screen made me smile for the first time in hours. "Lisa. Henry, I'm so sorry about tonight. The children and I are safe at my parents' house. Jake keeps asking if Grandpa Henry is okay, and Emma wants to show you her drawing of our family." Would it be all right if we visited tomorrow? The kids need to know their grandfather still loves them. I typed back quickly, Of course. You and the children will always be welcome here. This is your home too. Her response came immediately. Thank you. We love you. 3 simple words that meant more than all of Mark's elaborate manipulations. Lisa had chosen to see me as family not because of obligation, but because of love and respect. Jake and Emma would grow up knowing their grandfather as someone who had chosen truth over comfort. Another text arrived from Officer Kate. Mr. Hayes, David Clark has been formally charged and is cooperating with our investigation into your son's involvement. I'm sorry this happened, but I'm glad we caught them. I texted back, Thank you for everything. You saved more than just my money. I walked to my bedroom and pulled out Rose's photo album, turning past the memories to the blank pages at the back. Tomorrow I would ask Lisa to bring her camera. We would take new pictures, Jake with his airplane model, Emma with her artwork, all of us together in ways that mattered. Not the false unity of shared DNA, but the real bonds of chosen family. My phone buzzed once more. This time it was a message that made my chest tighten. Mark, Dad, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I need you to know I never meant for it to go this far. I'm checking myself into rehab tomorrow. I don't expect forgiveness, but I hope someday you can understand I was desperate, not evil. I stared at the message for a long time before typing back. Get help, Mark. Not for me, but for yourself. Maybe someday we can talk again. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it wasn't complete abandonment either. The door wasn't closed forever, but it would take more than words to open it again. I placed Rose's photograph on my nightstand where I could see her smile first thing in the morning. Tomorrow would bring lawyers and insurance claims, difficult conversations, and new beginnings. But it would also bring Jake's laughter and Emma's artwork, Lisa's genuine warmth, and the chance to build something real from the ruins of what had only been pretending to be family. Outside my window, snow continued to fall, blanketing the world in possibility. 3 months later, spring touched Oakwood Heights with gentle warmth. My basement window had been repaired, stronger than before. The physical scars had healed, but the deeper changes remained, and I was grateful for them. I stood in my kitchen, watching Jake and Emma play in my backyard. Lisa sat on the porch steps, reading while keeping one eye on her children. They'd been living with me for 2 weeks now, until Lisa found her own place nearby. Grandpa Henry! Emma ran toward the house with dandelions clutched in her small fists. For Grandma Rose's picture. She'd taken to bringing flowers for Rose's photograph, understanding instinctively that love transcends death. I accepted the yellow blooms with appropriate ceremony. She would have loved these, I told her, placing them in a vase beside Rose's picture. Yellow was her favorite color. Jake burst through the back door, his completed airplane model in his hands. We'd finished building it together over quiet Sunday afternoons, his chatter filling the spaces that had been empty for too long. Can we test fly it today? He asked, eyes bright with possibility. After lunch, I promised. Your mom's making sandwiches. Lisa appeared in the doorway, flour dusting her hair from bread baking. She'd taken to elaborate cooking, as if feeding us well could heal what Mark had broken. It was working. The house sale closes next week, she said quietly. Mark's lawyer says the money will cover most of his debts and the kids' college funds. Mark had disappeared into treatment in another state, selling everything to pay what he owed. The dangerous creditors had accepted partial payment and his complete absence. David Clark received probation for his cooperation. Sometimes I wondered if I should feel sorry for my son, but the emotion wouldn't come. He'd made his choices. Lisa, I said, I want you to know you and the children will always have a place here. This is your home too. Actually, she smiled. I found a house 3 streets over. Close enough for daily visits. Far enough for independence. The kids need their grandfather, but they also need to see their mother standing on her own. Through the window, Emma was teaching Jake to make dandelion chains, their laughter carrying on spring air. This was what Rose had tried to tell me: family isn't about blood or obligation. It's about showing up with love and consistency. My phone buzzed with a text from Tom Wilson. Barbecue this weekend? My grandkids are visiting. I showed Lisa, who nodded enthusiastically. That sounds perfect. Perfect. Not a word I'd have used 3 months ago when I was desperately chasing the ghost of a son who'd already chosen his path. But sometimes perfect isn't about having everything you thought you wanted. Sometimes it's about appreciating what you actually have. Jake's paper airplane soared across the yard. Emma clapping as it landed near her dandelion collection. Real family was growing in my backyard like those persistent yellow flowers, resilient, unexpected, beautiful. I thought of Rose's wisdom about chosen family, about love that endures beyond death, about second chances that come in forms we never anticipated. She'd been right about everything. The people we love are always with us, not just at Christmas, but every ordinary, extraordinary day if we're wise enough to see them. As I watched my grandchildren play, I realized I was no longer the lonely widower who'd been rejected on Christmas Eve. I was a grandfather, a father figure to Lisa, a friend to Tom, a keeper of Rose's memory. I was exactly who I was meant to be. The future stretched ahead, smaller than I'd once planned but infinitely richer. There would be school plays and birthday parties, scraped knees and bedtime stories, graduations and weddings. There would be a family built not on blood and obligation, but on choice and love. And that was enough. That was everything. As I reflected on the journey that had led me here, I realized that the most profound lessons often emerge from the darkest moments. The importance of family and the choices we make to nurture those bonds cannot be overstated. Family is not just about blood ties. It's about the love and respect we choose to share with one another. In the spirit of the season, I found comfort in the memories of Rose, knowing that she would always be with us, guiding us through our lives. "Thank you, God," I whispered, "for the love that surrounds us and the chance to rebuild what was lost." As I prepared to share new grandpa stories with Jake and Emma, I understood that each moment together was a precious gift, a chance to create new memories that would last a lifetime. We are all part of a grand family story, woven together through love, laughter, and the trials we face. So, as we gather around the dinner table or share stories in the living room, let us remember the importance of family. Let's cherish the moments spent together and support one another through life's challenges. I invite you to join the conversation. What lessons have you learned from your family stories? Please share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and share this story with others. Together, we can inspire more families to cherish their bonds and create lasting memories. Thank you for being part of this journey with me.